Good morning, Ohio. James Ernest with the Grueling Truth Radio Network here with wrestling legend Paul Roma. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, it's our pleasure. And by the way, an early happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Welcome. So what was life like growing up in New York?
Well, it's strange because I bounced around. So most of my life growing up in Connecticut, I moved to New York for a short period of time. I was in Boston for a short period of time, and now back to Connecticut.
So what sports did you play growing up?
Probably every sport but hockey.
But the way I understand it, you really excelled at the martial arts.
Yeah, I mean, kickboxing was one of my fun to-dos. I really enjoyed, getting in there with, and that physical contact.
With that, did that help your transition into professional wrestling?
I don't know. Not, yes and no. I mean, it helped me athletically, but then, playing football and a little bit of baseball, so soccer, probably wasn't much I didn't touch, bodybuilding. So everything kind of, worked together and, just sheer determination.
Excellent. So
once I got into wrestling.
Of all the sports and just doing all those athletic endeavors, it sounds like really helped you along in your wrestling career. Now with football, I'm guessing you were, a running back and a linebacker?
No, it's actually a split end.
Oh, cool. And then with baseball, infield, outfield, what,
Center field.
Center field, nice.
Yeah, with the speed, able to run things down. Kickboxing, bodybuilding, kickboxing was my passion back then. You grow up in a tough part of town, and, it's good to have a little bit under your belt.
What originally got you interested in professional wrestling?
Well, I got cut from the pros in football, third round tryout, and basically they told me I was the wrong color. I found that a little strange, but coach grabbed me when I was leaving, and that's what he said to me. And I told him, well, I really appreciate his honesty. It's all good. And I had dabbled into pro wrestling, not knowing where it was going to take me. But what got me really engaged was I have a sister that has Downs, and I just looked at life and said, well, I got everything going for me, my health, I have money, I own my own home. So what am I doing so great, right? So I said, well, if I can make a name for myself, I'd become a role model for these kids, and then I can go out and, visit these hospitals and, try to cheer these kids up. And so that was the path I took, and that's why, I was all go, no quit, getting beat for, 2-3 years in the WWF, and, just staying the course, and finally got a little bit of a break and made a name for myself. And that was that allowed me to become a spokesperson for St. Jude's Foundation and go visit all these hospitals, talk to the kids, put a smile on their face. So it was well worth it, regardless of, what people, the couch potatoes, as I always put it, the critics out there that are sitting at home. I did what I needed to do, and I got as far as I possibly could in the world of wrestling.
Exactly, and you got pretty darn far. I mean, you won multiple championships in many continents, the way I understand. Is that correct?
Yeah, but for the most part, that was helpful for notoriety. Being a horseman was good for notoriety. Power and Glory, Young Stallions, pretty wonderful. So that was, that just really how can I say it? Gave me that I know who you are. When I met these kids, so that was a big plus.
So going back to when you were starting out, your trainer, of course, a lot of people say Tony, but I've also heard Mr. Fuji. Who did the majority of your training?
Well, in the very beginning, when I joined the wrestling school, Tony Altamori was my trainer. But he showed me the basics, headlocks, hammerlocks, reversals, things like that. When I ran into and met Mr. Fuji, he took me to a whole nother level as far as training and understanding the psychology of a match. So, I owe it all to Mr. Fuji.
Yeah, the way I understand, he's a pretty intense trainer. Is that true?
Yeah, he'll run you to half to death. I mean, I remember one time I was inside, my brain. I was begging him to stop, but I just kept saying to myself, if you quit, then you quit, and you're all done. So you can't let this guy beat you, and I did. And eventually he said, "Okay, take a break." I was the happiest guy in the world.
How long did it take you to feel home in the wrestling ring?
A few years. Once Fuji started working with me, I said to him one day, I said, I don't get it. I said, you keep telling me about this psychology. He says, I don't get it. He goes, oh, one day, in his broken language, he said, you're going to get it. I said, but when? He goes, it's just going to happen. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's going to happen. You know what I mean? So I think there was the way, with my school now, because I have a training facility, I really get into deep detail and make my students understand, him and his way, I guess, the communication, there's some people that are great wrestlers, some people that are great trainers. I think he's a great wrestler. I think as far as knowledge, he's a great trainer, but he wasn't great at getting the psychology, the communication across. And then I was in a match one night, and I believe it was, forget who it was, but anyway, and I sat in the middle of the ring in a reverse chin lock, and I said, that's it? And he says, the guy I was working with says, what? And I said, that's it? He goes, what's it? I said, that's it. I said, I got it. I said, that's it.
That was
he had no idea what I was talking about. No idea.
Awesome.
And a light bulb went on, and when I walked, after the match, I walked in the locker room, and Fuji was sitting in the corner, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and this big smile came over his face, and he goes, you got it. And I said, I got it. And he laughed, and he just smiled and acknowledged me, and I said, that's it? I said, I can't believe that's it. All this time I've been looking for this, this pot of gold at the end of a rainbow, and, I just kept missing it, and finally it lit up. And from that point on, wrestling became easier, became a lot more fun, because I understood what I was doing, why I was out there and how I can do this and get the crowd engaged and get them crazy, whether they're rooting for me or against me, it was easy at that point.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was going to say, that aha moment makes such a world of difference. What type of partner was S.D. Jones?
S.D. Jones was a phenomenal guy. He's a sweetheart. He's a sweetheart of a guy. Almost like I don't want to say so much a father figure, because that makes him sound old. You know what I mean? A great tutor is the best way to put it. He was a great tutor. Really kept me clean. As far as, listen, let the guys do that. You just be who you are. You just stay the course. You don't have to go out and drink to be with these guys. You go hang out with them, but you don't have to do all that, because I didn't drink. and I knew that was going to be a tough get around. With guys that are out there having a good time, and hey man, why aren't you having a drink? Like, well, I don't drink. Oh, come on, just have one. So there was that peer pressure, but I stuck to who I was, and he backed me on it, which was nice. And he wasn't a big partier as far as that goes. So
that is awesome. It's always important to have someone that has your back. So when you started out on the road, what was it like? And then at what point did it become easier? And did it become less of a challenge?
Well, going into a sport where you have no control over is very difficult. So the first time I had gone to TV, I was just this guy. And, hey, we like this guy. He's got a good look, good body, okay. As I said in the beginning, Tony Altomare showed me how to pose. You get a headlock and, you pose. You show your body, your muscles. That didn't work. And then when Fuji got a hold of me, I started to get that. It became fun, I think, after I had been on, the road for a little bit, after being with SD Jones. That was a big plus. That made life a lot easier because, he made it fun. Kept you humble. But at the end of the day, it was, other wrestlers didn't see me as the person that I am. SD did because we were teammates, we were partners. We traveled together. So he got me. He understood me as I understood him. And then as time moved on, we moved into the Young Stallions. That didn't. It was a push. We didn't gel real well. It looked like we did in the ring, but even in the ring and outside the ring, there was always a problem that the Young Stallions had. And then I got with Hercules, and he got it. He understood me as I understood him, and he was on the same page, or we were on the same page. So the reason why Power and Glory got together was one, I thought of it. He's a great guy, and I approached him and said, "Hey, listen, man, we're traveling together and we get along, and I got this idea, Power and Glory." I said, "You're the power, I'm the glory." I said, "No matter what happens, you never get beat. I'll always get beat on our team because you can't beat the big guy." I said, "But if this is going to work, you have to agree that we are going to go and do this thing, which is go and visit these kids and give autographs and, go to hospitals and cheer these kids up." And he said, "Hey, listen, man, I got a bunch of kids at home. I'm on board. Let's make this go." So that's when I approached Pat Patterson at the office, and then he said, "Let's go talk to Vince at TV." And we walked in, we laid it out to Vince, and Vince said, "Okay."
So is it true that Brett said you were the best tag team that he'd ever seen?
That's true. Out of his mouth. Mr. Perfect, same thing.
Oh, wow. That's pretty big praise coming from two legends. So,
yeah. We were, again, staying humble. But again, there were certain guys that looked at, I would say mostly me, and didn't get it, didn't understand me. Like I'll give you a perfect example. So I turn heel, and I go out and have a match. And I come back in, and what's his name? The agent says to me, Jack Lanza says to me, "Did you like that match?" And I said, "It was okay. I'm feeling myself out." He goes, "Well, listen," he goes, "you should do this, 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 and this tomorrow night." So I said, "Okay." So then Perfect grabs me and says, "Listen," he goes, "don't take this the wrong way." He says, "But be you. Be that arrogant, when you come in the locker room and guys look at you and they hate you. by the way you look and the way you carry yourself. He said, put that out in the ring, because that's you. He said, just be an asshole, just like that. And he puts his hands up like, I was going to hit him. And I was like, no, man, I appreciate that. That's great. So I go out in the ring the next night, and Jack's obviously the agent again, and he's watching the match, and I did my thing, what Perfect told me to do. Just be me, and I had a ball. I had a blast. So I come back in the locker room, and Lanza grabs me, and he says, now, wasn't that better? And I went, he goes, aren't you glad you listened to me? And I went, oh, yeah. And then I walked over to Perfect. I said, great stuff, man. He goes, that match was great. He goes, that's you. You got to do that every night, man. He goes, I wanted to kill you. You're so arrogant. And he goes, that's you. So even though Jack, I didn't do what Jack asked me to do, but I did put him over because I didn't want to, act like I didn't appreciate what he told me. Yeah. It's just that, Jack Lanza or Mr. Perfect, who do you listen to? So I was in the Perfect. I did my thing. He was all good with it. I was good with it. And from that point on, pretty Paul Roma just, had the crowd hating him. And that's the whole point of it.
So how would you compare the Young Stallions with the Power and Glory?
We were more finesse. No big power guy on the team. We're kind of like the Rockers. Just not as, I don't think we're as fluent as they were. I think the Rockers were a phenomenal team. The best that Power and Glory, I think, ever worked with. We didn't have that camaraderie that Ray and I had. We didn't have the communication without talking that Ray and I had. Ray would walk over to me and say, hey, and I'm already coming off the top rope, and he's telling me to come off the top. And when we get out in the car, we talk, and, I say, hey, man, he goes, man, I came over to you, you already knew. I said, yeah, dude. I said, I can feel what, you want me to do, and vice versa. So it just worked.
That really seems to be one of the cornerstones of great tag team wrestling, is being on the same page. And like you said, with your original tag team, the Young Stallions, not being on the same page probably put some challenges there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I liked, excuse me, I would try to take something to the next level. So if somebody throws a nice drop kick, I had to jump higher and throw a better one. If somebody leapfrogged somebody, I had to jump higher than that person. There's just things that I had to do better. Because I ran track and I ran hurdles, when I went to straddle over somebody, I straddled over him like a hurdle. In the beginning, I would just do that jump over that, full straddle. Whereas, when I practiced like I was hurdling this person, and I could continue my run. But when I got out in the ring with Jimmy, I'd run a spot with the guy, and then the next night, Jimmy go in the ring and he'd run my spot. And I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Like, everything I'm doing, you're doing the next night, and now I have to come up with, new stuff, so to speak. So it was kind of strange, it was, come up with your own shit. Don't be stealing mine. This is me. I come off with a double axe handle on the guy's arm, go into a forward roll, and then come up in the other guy's face, the other heel's face. Well, then the next night, he jumps off the top rope. I got the guy's arm, and he goes into a forward roll, and he comes into the other guy's face. I'm like, really? I mean, come on, seriously. I'm different spots, different things. It was challenging. He's not a bad guy. I think he got caught up in the world of wrestling. I think he got caught up in, all the glory, no pun intended. That notoriety, and then he started hanging out with the Bulldogs, and that didn't bode well for the team. And I told him one night, I said, listen, dude, you're not a Bulldog. You're a Young Stallion. He thought the Young Stallions were a joke. He thought it was a rib that Pat came up with. So, again, that didn't go over too well. I took I was a little pissed about it because at the end of the day, I'm there to make a name for myself, to get notoriety because I have a mission.
Mm-hmm.
Is it to make money? Yeah, you want to make money. Of course you want to make money. But I had a mission that I was on. And this was a nice step in the right direction if we could keep it going and make it work.
How close was Mr. T to becoming the manager of the Young Stallions? Was that ever really a thing?
Yeah, we came into one of the arenas, I think it was in Detroit, and we're sitting in the locker room, and I looked at Jimmy, and I said, this is great, man. We got Mr. T is going to manage us. This is unbelievable, And he said, yeah, isn't this great? So we're waiting around, and then we get called to go into the ring, and there's no Mr. T. Well, he never showed. Oh. And rumor has it that he was that way. He wasn't, he wasn't known for showing up. Wasn't too reliable. So that went in the shitter real quick. Yeah. So again, Vince could have went another route with that if he wanted to. Same thing with Power and Glory. We're going to have Heenan come out with us, and they put the squash on that. Then we went out with no manager. Then we went out with Slick. So, and again, not taking anything away from anybody, but there are different levels. I mean, when you talk about a Bobby Heenan, you're talking about the guy bringing out he's the best of the best.
Oh yeah, the great.
Let's face it, there's no one better than him. Yeah. So it was tough, man. It was really tough.
But I'm sure you still had some benefits with Slick.
Oh yeah, he's a great mouthpiece, super nice guy. But again, you want to play for the New England Patriots who won 5 rings?
Yep. Or
do you want to go and play for I don't know, name a team that just the Cleveland Browns?
Yeah.
I'm not putting them that low. I don't mean it that way, and I apologize to them.
Or something, or the New York Giants, someone more mid-level. I know what you mean.
Right. You know what I mean. You want to play for that team that you can. Yeah. The New York Knicks. I mean, the only reason LeBron would go to the Knicks is because why? Because it's the number one team as far as marketing, right?
Exactly.
Right. So we wanted Heenan and Heenan managed Ray.
Exactly. They already had the experience together in the Heenan family, so that only made sense. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. But how it all transpired was when we went out to the ring, they put us against baby faces, and we beat up on the baby face, and the crowd cheered us. So Vince said, we came back in, Vince goes, well, that didn't work. So he gave us a couple more baby faces, a little more notoriety, and we kicked their ass, and people cheered us. So Vince says, well, that didn't work. So that's when he set up that angle where I came out to the ring and, what's his name, Dino Bravo beat me, and then I thought the Rockers are the ones who jumped me, and Ray came down and blah, 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 and we took off.
Exactly.
After that, we took off. It was insane after that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it started really getting you some heat there. If you and the Rockers, yeah.
Then we beat the Hart Foundation for the straps in Long Island Coliseum, and they handed us the belts. And then the referee, did his thing, and he comes back, and they make an announcement that we cheated, so we can't win the belts. And I turned to Ray, I said, man, did you hear that crowd? It was deafening. They cheered us, dude. We beat the Hart Foundation, the number 1 tag team. We beat them, and they cheered us. And he looked at me, and he said, we'll never see those belts again. And as we're walking in the locker room, when I got into the locker room with him, I said, dude, what are you talking about? He goes, we're talking in the car. And we got in the car, and he said, we'll never see those belts again. And I said, what do you mean? I said, do you hear that crowd? He goes, exactly. He goes, we just beat the top team, and they cheered us. We're never going to see those belts. And he was right.
Yeah, that's the thing I have never understood about professional wrestling, or at least specifically the WWE. It seems there's an agenda behind who they want to be a heel or a face, where you would think they would go more organically. And if they're cheering for you, go with it, And if you're booing you, go with it. But it seems like they want to fight the crowd sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know what the reasoning is behind it. I have my ideas, but again, They're just ideas. Doesn't mean, that's true. It's just what I can perceive as what went down and why it went down the way that it did.
Will you break down your move, the Powerplex?
What about it?
Tell us a little bit about it for those that didn't get a chance to see it. What does it look like?
So Ray sets the guy up for a Powerplex off the top rope, and I go down to the opposite end, and as Ray is suplexing the guy, as soon as he leaves, I jump. So basically, I'm jumping to clear the guy's feet, and I'm assuming by Ray's length and the person's length, I have to zero in on where I think his chest is going to land in the ring. And then I come down with a splash on that.
Oh, wow.
So Ray and I brought that together when we were heading up to Minnesota. Mm-hmm. We were driving in the car from the airport to the arena, and he said, "Hey, man, we don't have a finish." And I go, "Holy cow, we don't have a finish." He goes, "No." I said, "Well, you drive. We got an hour," or whatever it was. I said, "Just give me a little bit and let me think." So I showed him on the dashboard as he was driving what I was thinking of. He goes, "You think we could do it?" I said, "Man, we could do anything, you and me." So he says, "Okay." So we get in the building, and they said, "What are you going to do for a finish?" And we told them, and the guys are like, "What?" So they jumped around the monitor. They said, "We got to see this." So they jumped around the monitor, and I gave Ray the tag, and as he set the guy up, I tagged him. I ran down to the other end. I pointed my hand at him, and he did what he had to do. So in the beginning, it was a little slower, but once we got it, then it was that. And when we came back in the locker room, the guys were just going nuts. They thought it was the greatest finish they've ever seen. They couldn't believe we pulled it off because we never practiced it.
Oh, wow. It just kind of all of a sudden, like you said, because of the car ride, started doing that move. That is phenomenal. Now, with that, unfortunately, after Power and Glory, you transitioned out of WWF to WCW. What was that transition like?
The locker room was a little more laid back. Not as much tension, stress, whatever you want to say, anxiety. Hey, they called me up. They said, "We want to make you a horseman." I said, "Okay." I guess I wasn't too overly excited about it. Didn't know much about it. I didn't follow wrestling. Didn't know what wrestling was. So, once I got into it, I didn't know who anybody was. I didn't know Macho Man. I didn't know who Hulk Hogan was. I didn't know anybody. And, it was not well taken down there, the good old boys, and here's this guy coming in that is, for lack of a better word, until I got with Ray, undercard, a jobber for the most part. And so the people were kind of, yay, boo, and it was tough. It was difficult understanding the horseman mentality.
How great was it teaming up with Paul Orndorff?
Paul was a great guy. Is a great guy. Easy to get along with. Understood me. I understood him. And we got along. We gelled. We had no problems with one another.
Now, obviously, it started out as a movie, but now it is a professional wrestling organization. Tell us about Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling.
Well, I'll tell you how we got the name. So two of my partners, former wrestlers, and they just called me up and said, "Hey, we want to open a wrestling school." And I was like, "Okay, but we want you to be the head trainer." I said, "That's fine. We need a name." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, Steve, one of our guys, our partners, he used to go by the name of Dave Paradise." So I said, "Why don't we call it Paradise Alley?" Great movie. I think the name is cool. We could, it's based off of his last name. So they liked it, and we went with it.
So how long did that take to get up and running?
Well, the school took about a year to get up and running. My first student was actually Richard Holiday, who wrestles for MLW. He's one of their top dogs. And then it just escalated from there. I had schools before that, which were very successful, but because of family obligations, I had to, shut down my business. So a lot of my students followed me over. Once they heard that I had opened, they came in to train. And then we just started getting new students.
So you mentioned Richard. Who are some of the other people that you've trained over the years?
Brian Anthony. He works for, who is it? Is it NEW, I believe. Here's a kid who had it all. Don't know why. Never got chosen. Obviously, other than Holiday. What's his name? I can't even remember his name. He just got into a lot of trouble and just got cleaned out from rehab. I can never remember his name. He signed with the WWF. Kevin Landry, another one that worked for WWF, and he got a raw deal. But again, it's the nature of the beast, part of the business. So he has his own school up in Massachusetts now.
Awesome. Tell us about some of your current roster.
Wow. Well, obviously, all independent wrestlers. I have the House of Pain. They're out of Bronx, New York. They're great tag team. Holiday, as you said, I have Matthias. He is another, smaller in stature as far as if you take a Holiday and put him up there, he could work alongside of him, which is not a problem. But, you have weight difference and height difference. And then I created people, as far as, I went back to old school, which works. So I have a team called Collusion, which is a Russian and an Arab. I created a guy called Sergeant Murray, who is actually a true war vet. He was in Desert Storm.
Oh, yeah.
So, we have, quite a few legit as far as police officers, and servicemen. We have a masked guy named Jin. He was in the Army. Sergeant Murray was in the Air Force. We have, police officers. Some are referees. We have, my Russian is former Navy. So it's a nice range of people. My champions, which is now Vlad. It was Matthias. We have Bloodsaw. He's our USA champion. Bull Dread. There's just Big Jim Anderson. We got a bunch of different characters. We have a black version of the Rockers.
Oh, cool.
Yep, which is they're called the Haven. Young guys. Man, I told them one day, I said, listen, you guys are good. I said, I want you to watch the Rockers films. I want you to just steal everything you can from them. They are great. And they came in one day, and I said to one of my new guys, I said, I want you to watch this match, and I want you to tell me who they remind you of. And they got done. He looks at me and goes, the Rockers. I said, thank you. I said, you hear that, guys? The Rockers. That is man, that's kudos right there. Kudos to you. Because the Rockers are great. I said, and just, that's what you need to do. Go back. Those are the guys that made this business. Everybody today is cookie cut. Vince cookie cuts all of them. And it just doesn't work. You have to be different, separate from all those people.
Why is it important to have several major promotions? Because nowadays, fortunately, it seems like there are getting more options with the AEWs, the MLW, New Japan, things like that. Not that New Japan hasn't been there, Ring of Honor, Impact. It seems like there are getting to be more options in the wrestling world. Do you feel that?
Well, you have AEW, right? Mm-hmm. Another one. It's good because these wrestlers have avenues to go to. When you have one game in town, either you make that team or you don't, and then what do? So now you have competition, which is good for Vince. He has to step up his product to keep the stocks up, right? Yep. Keep the people watching, keep the pay-per-views going. So it was always good, to have other organizations. Like when I was there, you had Mid-South and was it NWA you had? Mm-hmm. And then you had the Von Erichs, you had some, Florida wrestling. It was all different. And it was nice. It was really nice because guys could get to these places and travel and, maybe get signed with somebody and, be there steady and, make a few bucks, trying to live your dream.
Do you get a chance to watch any of the promotions nowadays, or because of working your school and working your promotion, do you mostly, obviously you focus on that the majority of it, but do you ever just sit down and enjoy some of the other competition?
Well, it's strange. I don't want to. Why should I change who I am, right? I mean, I've always been cocky because I believe in me, and I believe in everything that I do. But, there's a lot of my guys that could run circles around these guys that are out there that have been signed. And it's just a fact. It is what it is. But again, it's a question of the right place, the right time, getting that one chance to show your stuff, and hopefully that they're going to like you and take you. It's what I watched today is I let my daughter watch probably about 15 minutes of wrestling. She likes watching the women. But again, here you have a now 12-year-old that will watch a man's match and call the spots. Now, how is that a 12-year-old can call the spots before it happens? Now, I'll look at her and I'll say, "No, that's not going to happen." And she goes, "See, I told you." I'm like, "How'd you know that?"
Oh, wow.
I mean, damn, I've been in the business forever. And, in one match in particular, she says, "Dad, watch this. Roman Reigns is going to hit the manager with a Superman punch." I said, "Nah, that's not going to happen." I said, "This is what's going to happen. This guy's going to come in, blah, blah, blah." Next thing you know, he's hitting the manager with a Superman punch. And I went, "Are you kidding me?" And then I go to the school and I tell all the guys, I'm like, "I can't believe this. I can't believe she's calling this." She'll call screw-ups. "Oh, they messed up, Pop. They messed up." I'm like, "Yeah, they did." But again, there's so much talking going on in WWE and less wrestling that, I'll change the channel. I'll say, "Okay, I'll come back." They're going to be talking for 15 minutes. I'll come back. I come back. They're still talking. I'm like, "All right, I'll be right back again," But other than that, I don't let her get too involved. She digs coming to our shows. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the shows, and the guys know, I will get her in the car, and I'll say, "Okay, best match of the night?" And she'll tell me. And I'll say, "Okay, now go down the line. What do you think? Give me the top 3." And she does. And then we have a group chat. I'll go in. I'll say, "Okay, best match of the night, this, and this." There you go.
Nice.
And they'll even go over to her now. They'll say, "Hey, Emma, what'd you think?" Because they know. She knows. She knows what's entertaining. She gets it. I don't know how, but she gets it.
That is awesome. So in about 10 years, we'll be seeing a second-generation star?
No. My daughter is a gymnast. That is her love, her passion. She is a miniature version, physically, of me, only better.
Oh, wow.
So, got started in gymnastics late, which is, our parents' fault, me, my wife. We didn't know. I mean, who knows that much about gymnastics, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Bounced her around to a bunch of different schools, and now she's with PGA, which is the top school here in Connecticut, and yeah, she's doing well. She already knows what university wants to go to. She has a list. She wants to go to UCLA. She wants to be a dentist. She tells me they got the best dental program there. I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, back then she was 10. That was 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I said, you're 10 years old. Did you already know? He's like, oh, yeah, Dad, that's where I want to go. She goes, if, they won't pick me for gymnastics, then I like to go here. So then she picks, LSU. She likes Oklahoma. She likes Florida. I'm like, oh, my goodness. They're all top 10 schools.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. She is a smart young woman. Yeah. To be able to. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was going to say, when I was 10, I definitely wasn't thinking of college. Wow.
No, we're thinking of going out and throwing a ball around and playing tag with our friends or whatever, basketball. I don't know. Yeah. But no, in this time off, she's, still working out at home.
Cool.
She has, her equipment. I mean, my daughter has a monster bedroom, so she has an 8-foot beam in her room that she practices on, and chin-up bars and press-up bars, and, so she's all set right now.
Nice. It sounds like she's really dedicated and really focused. That's phenomenal.
She is. She enjoys it. So, very proud of her, winning states and regionals, and it's just a shame that this year had to get canceled. So, again, being her age, she has to repeat her level because she couldn't compete in states and regionals. So now she has to repeat, which sucks. In that industry, you got to be really young at a certain level.
Exactly.
So we'll see what this year brings.
Sounds great. I was going to say, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. Before we let you go, where on social media, where on the web can they find out about you, find out about your school, that kind of thing?
They could go to Paradise Alley ProfessionalWrestling.com.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul, for joining us, and it's been a pleasure.
James, it was my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on your show.
You have a great day.
You too.